Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Crawley Town Supporters Alliance Simply Reds podcast. My name is Reuben, and I'm joined by Louie. You doing all right, Louie?
Hello, Reuben. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, much better after our first win of the season. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Just got off holiday, hence the not having any podcast over the past few weeks, but I'm refreshed and raring to go. And yeah, nothing beats a win, eh?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure whether we should apologise to the listeners for our absence. I don't know if it's a welcome break from us or not, but yeah, we're back, and I don't think there's any holidays for the next few weeks, so regular service should be resumed.
Yeah, yeah. Although if somebody decides to offer us a holiday, we know why.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, we will take it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, where do we even start? Let's just start off with the Chesterfield game. Try and get that out of the way. At
Yeah,
least try and get the
let's
second
let's
half
go over
out
that
of the
quickly.
way. Because first half, brilliant.
Yeah, a familiar story for us this season where we play really well the first half. Think of Tranmere, um, think of MK Dons, and then MK Dons we didn't drop off in the second half, but it's been a familiar tale for the last few weeks where we play well the first half, and at this time we took our chances. Probably, perhaps could have gone in 3-up. We took our chances, played really well. You go in at half time 2-0 up, and you're feeling really positive. And in the second half, we drop off. Whether it's teams adapting to us tactically, whether it's a fitness thing where we can't press as well, or we just can't, we can't keep up the intensity, which is worrying because this is the stage of the season where you're a few games in and the fixtures haven't really piled up yet. This is where you should, in theory, be at your freshest and you should be most match fit. It's not as if it's March or April where you've had 35, 40 games and you can really feel it in your legs as a player. I mean, not speaking from experience, but kind of we all know we've all watched enough football to know how it works. This is the point at which you've got some match games under your belt, you're match fit, but also you're actually you're still in really good peak physical condition. You've had your pre-season, you've got match fitness up, so that's worrying if that is the case. But I'm kind of going off on a bit of a tangent there, but it's a bit of a theme so far this season, and unfortunately and frustratingly, we couldn't hold on. It was one of those where as soon as the first goal went in, flashbacks to last season almost, and in the end, we were able to just about hold on for a point, which in isolation, a point at Chesterfield, not many teams are going to go there and A, cause the problems that we did in the first half, and B, come away with a point. I think Chesterfield are such a strong side, especially at home.
They'll be up
And
there.
they're always absolutely. I'm pretty certain they'll finish top three. I think they're a really really good side, really really good manager as well, who knows what he's doing at this level. So it's not in isolation. If you'd have and even before the game, if you'd offered me a point, I probably would have taken it because I did think we were going to go and get beat 2 or 3-0 and just come away with absolutely nothing. But I think to throw points away like that is so frustrating. And we saw last season how many times that happened to us and how it cost us in the end. Where if we had just held on in 1 or 2 of those games, we wouldn't be sat in League Two right now, most likely. So yeah, there's a bit of sort of trauma from last season where you're looking at this thinking how important could that be at the end of the season, wherever we end up in the table. But a good point in isolation, but given the fact that we were 2-0 up, given that we were going into the game having only got 1 point from the previous 4 or 5 games, like it was a game that we really felt like we had to hold on for the 3 points, and obviously a lot of positives to take to go to Chesterfield and play the way we did and come away with a point. And you can see that the performances have been getting better over the last few weeks, starting with that MK Dons game. But that was really frustrating.
Yeah, I think it shows. If we're kind of moving on to individual players, I mean, fair play to McCurdy. You definitely understand why he's the type of player you'd love on your team, but you would absolutely detest on the opposition team.
Yeah,
I think even when he
absolutely.
was playing for like the Swindon, coming down to the Broadfield Stadium, you'd just be a wind-up merchant. And
I think,
it's good. It's nice now he's actually playing in the position where he feels comfortable. He's actually able to perform. I mean, scoring 2 goals, one of them was a penalty, thanks to Carl McFadzean fouling one of our players.
Reuben, I'm just going to jump in. As a, we like to bring up that you're a former amateur referee. Did you think it was a penalty?
I think so, yeah.
I think for once we're aligned on a refereeing decision. He's flying into the box. He's not really got any reason to go down. And I think people forget as well that, like, and apologies if I said this before, when you're running at full speed, you don't have to be running particularly fast, but if you are running at full speed, you haven't got much balance. And one little knock, it's not hard to be knocked over if you, especially if you're a professional athlete. If you're someone who's a pretty quick player like Keem Dixon, if you're shoved in the back, it doesn't have to be like a lot of contact to send you down necessarily. And people always go, "Oh, there wasn't much contact." This, that, the other. It doesn't have to be to knock you off balance or to genuinely foul you. And if it's stopped you, it's one of those where I think it looks soft, but I think if you're in that position and you're running through, into the area and you get shoved in the back and you're running at pretty much full speed, and also you're pushed. He's pushed in the back as he's running forward. That's gonna knock him off balance as well. So I think it's one of those where I actually fully think it was. It can't really argue with it. If it was the other way around, I don't think I would have argued. For once, I wouldn't have argued with the referee.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people were particularly keen on the referee at that game.
No.
But I always say good referee is when both fans dislike you. And both fans
like you.
Referee. So technically, you had a good game. That's what you want. You want consistency, don't you?
So, it's like what they say about the BBC. If both sides of the political spectrum are criticising the BBC, then they must be fairly neutral. But straying away from politics, I thought, on McCurdy, it was ever since the MK Dons game, where he played further up the pitch, playing off of Shamanga, the improvement in his performances. He's just able to run in behind and just be a nuisance, and his ability to sort of carry the ball and get shots off and make things happen. He looks a completely different player to the first 2 or 3 games of the season, and I think it speaks volumes that probably a lot of fans weren't keen on him coming, and understandably so. He hadn't done much for a few seasons, and he didn't show much in the first 2-3 games, but I think the fact that he's pretty quickly got kind of turned those opinions around on him, and it's hard it's got to the point where people's, myself included, were saying, we don't understand why he's being picked, don't want to see him start for us. Now it's hard to imagine us going into this weekend's game against Cheltenham. It's hard to imagine him not starting, which is a really drastic turnaround in the space of a few games, and he deserves a lot of credit for it. And I think his work rate is really good. He's always running. He's always looking to get in behind the defence, make things happen. He's just a real nuisance, and I always think if you're a defender, what's the sort of players you don't want to play against are players who are constantly running in behind you. You want players who are pretty static in front of you, and he's anything but. So deserves a lot of credit for the last few performances and taking both goals. I know one's a penalty, but you still have to take it. And I think the first goal, obviously, a lot of composure and really nice. Again, running in behind. His ability to just run in behind defenders and beat them to the ball, and he it's an open goal, but he's still got a lot to do, and he earns that opportunity by running in behind and using his pace and his work rate. So fair play to him. He's really turned it around the last few games, and if he can carry on with those sorts of performances, you can easily see him kind of recapturing the form that he had at Swindon when he scored, 26 goals in the league that season. Where it was something along those lines. Like, absolutely, you can see where that we started to see glimpses, and not just glimpses, but actually sustained periods in games where you understand why Scott was so keen to bring him in, and you understand why he was so dangerous for Swindon all those years ago. If you get him in the right environment and you get him in the right areas on the pitch, he's going to be a real nuisance.
Yeah, and again, fair play to him. Like, he wasn't necessarily had too many compliments from Crawley fans in his first few games, which, I mean, probably through no fault of his own, really, because he's being played in a position which he can't really play. But I mean, considering it's, well, one or two games he got booed off the pitch. I mean, I remember at Swansea he got taken off, and he had to go off the other end of the halfway line, and he decided to walk away from the Crawley fans rather than by the Crawley fans, just because otherwise you'd have received dogs abuse, basically. Yeah. So in fair play to him. Hopefully he can now kick on. He was unlucky really not to score on Saturday against Chesterfield. And yeah, I mean, it's just worth quickly touching on the incident that happened at Chesterfield, and the fact that Adeyemo got hit by a bottle. I also believe Louis Watson also got hit by a water bottle, because there's an image going around of him. So if it's the same one, don't know.
Oh, interesting. Like I heard about Adeyemo because that was obviously mentioned on the Twitter feed, and there was a lot of talk about it, sort of after the game. But I hadn't seen that about Watson. That's really unfortunate. And obviously, you know, it's an isolated idiot in the crowd. You know, you don't want to cast too many. You know, it doesn't reflect a whole fan base, but it's really disappointing. And you know, I don't want to be all sort of high and mighty about it, but it's just one of those things you think. I mean, I've been absolutely fuming at football games. I've shouted some stupid things. Anyone who stands near me in the crowd, you know, if you might recognise my voice shouting something stupid at the referee, but you know, to go and throw something at someone over a game of football just because your team's conceded or whatever is just beyond stupid. It's one of the things. You wake up in the morning. They'll wake up in the morning, whoever did that, and they'll hopefully feel incredibly embarrassed and ashamed.
Yeah. I mean, one player that's kind of similar to McCurdy, who wasn't necessarily people's first choice on the team sheet, was Reece Brown, who scored a wonder goal against Harrogate. Really well taken goal. I think he did really well there. It was unfortunate to see Adeyemo getting fouled and then injured. So I don't know how long he'll be out for. But I mean, if really good, I think 3 points going to a place like Harrogate again, it's far. I mean, it's not quite as far as what Truro City had to do to get to Carlisle this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's the trek to end all treks, isn't it, that one?
Yeah, well, it's not even going to be the longest game this season. Truro have to
Gateshead?
Truro have to go to Gateshead.
Yeah. Christ. I mean, to be fair, with Gateshead, you can stop off in Newcastle for a night or two. It's make a weekend of it. And without meaning to be disrespectful to the good people of Carlisle, I'm not sure there's anywhere around there that holds that same appeal to stay around there. But I mean, yeah, I suppose you could. Yeah, the Scottish countryside, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, kind of unfortunate we lost Louis Watson for this game, considering I just think he's a really, really good player at this level, and he's been a bright spark this season. But Reece Brown, who had it's probably a decision that a lot of people agreed with. He'd been dropped for the last few games, and I didn't think it was a coincidence that our performances got a little bit better with Watson in the side instead of Brown. So I was a little bit concerned when I saw the team sheet, to the extent that I tweeted something about how is Brown starting ahead of Watson, and then he promptly makes me feel very, very stupid. And I mean, I'm always happy to be proven wrong in those sort of situations. And yeah, like you said, a really good strike on what I'm assuming is his weaker foot. He doesn't, if he can, strike it like that with his weaker foot, then that's genuinely really impressive technique, because it was almost as if he is left-footed. I'm pretty sure he's actually right-footed. So fair play to him. Really well taken goal, and it was again first half where we probably could have taken a couple of our chances and been a lot more comfortable, and then second half we invited a fair bit of pressure but defended the box well, and this time probably got away with it in a sense that we didn't do at Chesterfield, and we didn't against MK Dons, where we held on after having a first half lead, or a half-time lead rather. So yeah, really really positive result, and a badly needed win. Because I don't think Harrogate will get relegated, but I don't think they're going to be one of the I don't think they're going to be a side that troubles the top half of the table. So to go there and get a win ahead of two or three really quite winnable games, I would say. Obviously, we'll come on to it. We'll come on to the Cheltenham game, but Cheltenham are awful. I think they're that again a must-win game. So it's good to kind of get that monkey off our back, so to speak, before going into that. And then obviously Notts County, they've picked up a few points, but I don't think they're in great shape. So a couple of really really winnable games, and it's one of those where if we hadn't have beaten Harrogate, you would have started to get really, really. I mean, I was already quite concerned, but you start to get really concerned about how just where that win's going to come from. You end up going into. You end up going 7-8 games without a win, and you can't point the fingers at the ownership anymore because the ownership's changed and they've backed Scott. Do you point the finger at the players? So it's kind of nice to be able to avoid that conversation for now, at least, and just focus on. We've got 5 points on the board. We've played some good teams. We've gone to some tough places, and if we can build up a bit of momentum, win the next 2 or 3 games, which are pretty winnable. And football doesn't work like that, but in theory at least, it's a much better place to be than going into, for example, the Cheltenham game without a win and really feeling the pressure to beat a side that's on 2 points as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting come the end of the season to see our start compared to everyone else's start, and actually where they've all ended up. Because I think I said on the last pod, we have had a tough start playing the likes of Chesterfield. I mean, look at Grimsby. I think people thought Grimsby, okay, it'll be a decent game. We won't lose too badly, but we did, and they've ended up beating Man U. They've stormed it. Really, they beat Milton? They beat Milton Keynes, Grimsby quite comfortably.
Yeah, well, it should have been quite comfortable. They were 3-0 up against 10 men, and then ended up being 3-2 in the end. But yeah, and then MK Dons themselves probably not as strong a start as people expected. But I think I don't quite know if they know their best 11 is. They've, without wanting to talk too much about other teams, this is a Crawley podcast after all. But I think they're obviously a very good side. We saw they were a really strong side when we played them a few weeks ago. But I think they're a side that's suffering from having too many players at the moment, and they don't quite know their best 11. They haven't quite gelled. And I think people, with the amount of money they've spent, I've said before, they should win the league, but I don't actually think they will, purely because it's really difficult to gel that many players, and football doesn't work like that. You can have the best players in the league, and they've got an excellent manager, but I think and they will click at some point, and they will become the best team in the league, but they won't win the league purely because they've had a bit of a slow start compared to teams like Grimsby or Chesterfield, or even Swindon, who've had a good start. So it's really looks like it'll be a really interesting sort of promotion scrap at the top of the table. But anyway, yeah, you're right in that sense. That promotion scrap, we've played as, I think, probably 3 or 4 teams that will be involved with it. Grimsby, Crewe, Chesterfield, MK Dons. I think they're all sides that you could see finishing in the top 7 this season. You made that point, and the excellent Not the Top 20 podcast made the same point about us a couple of weeks ago, possibly, or when they were. I think it was before the Chesterfield game. They were saying, you can expect Crawley to improve because the performances are getting better. And if you look at the fixture they've had, they've actually played some really good teams. They played Crewe, Grimsby, MK Dons, who are all going to be up there, and it's probably not reflective of where we are as a side. And I think we're starting to show that now. We're only on 5 points, but the performances are getting there. We probably should have beaten Tranmere the way we played in the first half. Again, collapsed in the second half a bit, but I think there's still some things that we can see we need to work on. I wonder if we have the quality to because we have periods where we're really dominating games, especially in the first halves, and we create chances, or we look like we're on top, and we just don't consistently take those chances, or we don't consistently take advantage of the dangerous areas that we're getting into. And I don't think that's a coaching issue, because I think as a manager, as a coach, you can coach you can kind of coach your team into the final third. You can coach your team to get into those areas, but what the players do once they get the ball just outside the area, or when they get into a crossing position or a shooting position, you can't necessarily control that. So I wonder if it is I don't know if we have the quality to consistently make those periods of dominance count, and I think that has hurt us so far this season. I think it probably will continue to do so. So we're probably going to need a lot of luck at times to get the results we need, like we had like we had at Harrogate, where again, really good first half, great goal, should have been probably 2 or 3 up maybe. We had the better of the first half, but then second half they come back into the game, they hit the post. Harvey Davies has to make a few good saves. He's in the EFL team of the week.
Yes,
and again, he's another player who, like McCurdy, didn't have a great start to the season. A lot of fans are probably scratching their heads, a lot of concern at the goalkeeping situation, but putting a performance like that, and you kind of see why he's a Liverpool player. Although not that he's made a first team appearance for them, but you can see why he's come through the Liverpool academy. You can see why,
like the Premier League clubs, where the players aren't good enough, they just get rid of them. I don't think unless you're, say, Chelsea, who just likes to hog all the youngsters. I think it's still fair play to Harvey. He's obviously got something about him that Liverpool want to keep hold of. I mean, whether he will ever be a Premier League player, probably not. But I mean, they obviously see something in him that means that eventually they might be able to sell him on or something.
Yeah, well, they clearly think he'll play at a pretty good level, whether that's Championship or even just lower down in the Premier League. But I think if we look back a couple of seasons ago, Corey Adai, he was a bit shaky in the first half of the season, ended up getting dropped around the Christmas period or just before Christmas, and then ended up basically becoming pretty much the best goalkeeper in the league once he came back into the side. He was absolutely incredible. And probably it was him and maybe who was the Wrexham keeper. I can't remember his name now, but probably him and the Wrexham keeper, and maybe Lotitala, like just up there as the best keepers in the league, just absolutely phenomenal. So you kind of have to remember, especially for keepers, young keepers often do make mistakes. They're not quite there with their as the full package, so to speak. And he's a very inexperienced keeper, which maybe we should perhaps not have gone for an inexperienced keeper, because at this level it can cost you. But if he's going to develop, if he's going to improve and carry on putting in those performances, then it is a gamble worth taking, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, we were talking earlier before we started about stats, and saying how we'd love to look more into the stats, whether you're into stuff like XG, looking at player win percentages. But one player win percentage that we can definitely talk about is Scott Malone's 100% win record, 4-4, and hopefully that continues.
An excellent start. Yeah. So that does that stretch from? Yeah, I'm trying to think. Did he? So he would have played the first 2 games of last season where we beat Blackpool and Cambridge. And then would he have played against Swindon when we won in the League Cup? I'm trying to think, because he didn't play much after that. I don't think. Obviously there was he was released from his contract.
He played 2 League One games last season and 1 EFL Cup game.
Yeah, that rings a bell. And then he's obviously come off the bench on Saturday, and maybe I think there was a few eyebrows raised when he came back. But actually, if he continues 100% winning record, then obviously people might roll their eyes at stats. People will roll their eyes at WAGMI's stats-backed or data-backed recruitment, but that is a bit of data that I think everyone can get behind.
Yeah, I think so. I think even if he doesn't necessarily play, he brings experience, which we've perhaps been lacking. I mean, apart from Holohan, I can't think of any player who's above the age of 28. I'd even say.
Yeah. I mean, you've got. I think there is. It's interesting because obviously Scott made in the last few days of the transfer window. He made a big deal a couple of times of saying he wanted experience and whatnot. I think. I think for one thing, I think experience is a little bit overrated. We didn't have that much experience when we went up a couple of seasons ago, and that was a we were playing some excellent football, and the mentality in that side was excellent in terms of the amount of points we won late on, the sort of the amount of times we came from behind to get a point or even all 3 points. The other thing I would say is I think the team's probably actually got a bit more experience than we realised. You've got Josh Flint, who's played in the Eredivisie over in the Netherlands. You've got Harry McCurdy, who's played in the Scottish Premier League, who's played a fair few EFL games himself. You've obviously got Dion Conroy, very experienced. As you mentioned, you've got Gavin Holohan, who's maybe not starting every week, but again, very experienced.
So we've got over 30.
Max Anderson.
Yeah.
Max Anderson, who's got Scottish top flight experience. Trying to think, there is it's not necessarily the most experienced team, but I think the idea that it's a bunch of, and I know this isn't necessarily what Scott was saying, but I think the perception that there isn't much experience in the side, perhaps, I'm not saying it. I think it's not something I'd agree with. But sorry, go on.
So Scott Malone's our oldest with 34 years of age. Gavin Holohan, 33. Then you've got three people who are 29. So Reece Brown, Dion Conroy, and Wallacott. Then
Conroy's only 29?
Yeah.
I would have said he's 31. I thought he was kind of 30, 31.
And then two people at 28. You've got Harry McCurdy at 28 and Shimanga at 28.
Yeah, I mean, Shimanga's played a little bit of a few seasons in the Football League now, but not. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'd say the experience argument. Yeah, not necessarily the kind of, if I was in charge of recruitment, it's not necessarily the thing that I'd look for first, put it that way. Because I just think if you're, I do in many ways subscribe to the theory of if you're old enough, if you're good enough, you're old enough. You look at, I know it's not, I know it's a completely different level of football, but you look at someone like Miles Lewis-Skelly last season, only 18, but burst into the Arsenal team and then scored on his England debut with very little experience. Just as an example off the top of my head, plenty of other examples of young players who at any level who, if they're good enough, their talent will show through in one way or another. On the other hand, I do understand it. Sometimes you do need that little bit of know-how just to see games out, and it can be really important in certain moments of a game. But if you're defending a 1-0 lead away from home, Scott Malone's probably someone who you'd love to bring on just because he's going to win the ball. Gavin Holohan, he's going to pick up the ball. He's going to be in the positions where the ball drops for a second ball or for a duel, or just to kind of relieve the pressure by getting onto the ball. But I think overall, in terms of full 90 minutes and 46 games over a season, I'd rather just have quality players rather than players who have got however many EFL appearances. As a priority, at least. If you can have experience and quality, great, but that's probably something that's really out of our budget, to be fair.
Yeah, and just kind of before we move on to the rest of the transfer window, I think it's worth talking about Ryan Loft, who...
Yeah, of course.
I've read mixed things about him following the game at Harrogate.
When you say mixed, sorry, I thought you were going to say from Cambridge fans and Port Vale fans and Bristol Rovers fans.
They weren't mixed.
No, they were. It's probably. Sorry, I'm interrupting again, but it's probably the most unanimously hammered I've seen a player be by fans of his former clubs. Normally, you see. I mean, I remember when we signed Liam Kelly, for example. There were a lot of Rochdale fans saying, "Oh, he's not that good. He's a bit lightweight." But then there were at least a few Rochdale fans saying, "No, he's a good player. We just didn't play to his strengths, and it's hard for a midfielder like him who's quite sort of slight and small and technical." when you're kicking the ball just over his head and he's not getting on the ball. So even amongst all the criticism, there was a little bit of nuance. There was a little bit of, there is a good player there if you know how to play to his strengths. With Ryan Loft, there was not someone who had a single good word to say about him. And it was one of those, and if you look, and then you look at his goal record and you look at his disciplinary record as well, and it was a bit like, oof, this is this is just, it was a very confusing signing, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do feel sorry for the bloke, don't you? I mean, yeah. Hopefully, he didn't look at social media. But
if I was him, I would have avoided it.
There's obviously something about him. Like, if it was a Scott decision to sign Ryan, then Scott obviously something in him. I think in like the pre-match interview ahead of Harrogate, Scott mentioned that Ryan brings something that the Broadfield Stadium hasn't seen in a few seasons. And I think we saw glimpses of that against Harrogate. And yeah, it's just a shame we're not going to be able to see him for a number of games.
I think it's just the one game. I think it's just
I think double yellow is just one.
Second yellow.
But you just can't appeal it.
Yeah, which, and to be fair, it is. I thought it was a very soft second yellow. Maybe it was, even if it's persistent fouling for a second yellow. I don't know. I don't know if that's something that referees really do for a second yellow. But it was one of those where a long ball. They're both kind of. It's a bit of a 6 of one, half a dozen the other. They both go down in a heap. Him and the centre back, and it's one of those where I don't know whether the referee just feels like he has to make a decision. He's given he feels like he needs to give a foul, and then once he's given the foul, I honestly don't know.
I should imagine.
It seemed like to give a player a yellow card for that, let alone a second yellow, just felt really harsh.
Had it not have been a second yellow, he probably would not have even got a yellow. But
and that's what I mean.
I think because he's had a warning with that first yellow, whether that's kind of pushed the referee over the edge a little bit. But I mean, I don't think even the Harrogate players really complained or anything.
If the referee hadn't given a foul, no one would have batted an eyelid. It's just absolutely bizarre. But that is the standard of refereeing that we seem to get sort of 90%, maybe even 95% of our games. Yeah, it's frustrating for him because but by all accounts, put in a decent performance and was. Probably, and I think sometimes when you see players come in and fans of his former clubs are saying, "Oh, he's rubbish, he's rubbish." You have really you go into a game having really low expectations. Sometimes just having those low expectations perhaps makes the player's performance, it's a pleasant surprise. Oh, we actually, he's not a complete donkey. He is quite useful. So yeah, look, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how we shape up going into Cheltenham, because obviously Adigamo's out injured, most likely. Don't know whether Louis Watson will be back in. He's someone who seems to miss a few games of injury each season, which is frustrating because I'm sure if he could stay fit, there's a really good player there. So we'll have to shuffle the pack. Obviously, Cashman's out injured.
Yeah.
Again, don't know how long he's out for, and I think that's a big miss purely because I think he's just a really good technical player, and he's someone who can invite pressure on and get us playing. So
but so just before we go into the Cheltenham game, the transfer window is now shut. I think Crawley fans were disappointed with the final day of the transfer window. Normally it's action packed and there's a bit of a marquee signing, but I think a lot of fans were a bit disappointed with it just being Loft signing for us. I think I was probably more surprised that we didn't see any outgoings.
I was about to say,
I thought the likes of Jojo.
I think people forget how big our squad is. Yeah, I mean, God knows what's going on there, but people like our squad is actually we've got 29 players or something, and that's obviously including a couple of the younger players who aren't going to play that much. They might play in EFL Trophy, and which would be really good exposure for them and really good experience. And who knows, they might be able to force their way into some of the league squads. But it was strange. Especially with the amount of midfielders we've got now. I wondered if Rolls would go, but I know Scott really likes him as a player. you wondered if because the fact that we brought in Malone, who would probably play centre back, he'd probably be centre back cover or wing back cover. You wondered if Radcliffe might go out on loan because he wasn't even in the squad against Harrogate, which surprised me because I think I actually would be starting him most weeks. To be fair, but I really rate him. That's just an odd one in a few ways. Would I mean, with our injury problems, maybe it's wise to have a bit of a deeper squad compared to say the 24, 25 players that you might expect, but. Yeah, I was waiting for one or two to go out on loan or just be offloaded, especially like you mentioned, Jojo's clearly not in Scott's plans. So yeah, but in terms of players coming in, you mentioned fans being disappointed that we only brought in Ryan Loft on deadline day. I think something that people forget is that often we all want shiny new toys, we all want new players who we can get excited about, and often the players that we're spending, not admittedly not huge amounts, but players that we're spending money on to bring in, you've got to think, are they actually huge improvements on what we've already got? And I think I think we do tend to overrate how much a new player might improve the squad. How much difference does new often like solutions can come from within the building, from within the squad. For example, Harry McCurdy. People would have said, "Oh, we need to upgrade on McCurdy." Suddenly, he's looking like one of our most dangerous players, purely because he's just been sort of, to use a really geeky tactical phrase, he's being platformed a little bit better. He's getting into areas of the pitch where he's really lively and he can affect the game, and it brings the best out in the attributes that he's got. So sometimes just having those players who you think, right, well, we've got these players, how can we use them to the best of their ability rather than just casting them off and getting a new signing in who's probably not that much better, and it's just almost a waste of time and money. And I'm not saying we should never sign players. We all know that some players can have that sort of transformative impacts on the team, and they can really raise the level. Some players are just genuinely really good signings, and that's obviously not cut and dry. But before going, oh, we've had a terrible transfer window because we didn't sign X, Y, and Z, think about, actually, we might already have the solutions in the building, and they just have to be utilised a little bit better. And I think we've seen that over the last sort of few games where the performances have been better. Players are looking on an individual level looking a bit better. But yeah, I think perhaps we'd like to see another winger come in on deadline day, purely because both Forster and Adeyemo have got their injury problems. Cashman seems to have his injury problems. Pereira's not got great injury records, and he's obviously started the season injured. So perhaps some more cover out wide, so that we avoid having to play McCurdy at wing back again. Would have been good, but we've got the squad that we've got. We can still bring in one or two players on loan if we need to.
When does loan?
I thought it was the end of September.
I thought loans had already finished because in Scott Lindsay's press conference, he said that they were hoping to get a player in on loan, but they weren't quite sure if it would go through.
Oh, do you know what? You're right. I might be thinking of free transfers.
Yeah, they can bring in free transfers. Yeah, I mean, you look at. I think it's the Professional Football Association.
Yeah,
they do some type of like trial weeks.
Yeah, they play a load of friendlies, don't they?
Yeah, they've got some decent players there. And so hopefully the club are looking at them. But also it's worth bearing in mind that we are restricted to what we can spend, even though we've got owners. Doesn't mean we can just splash the cash. We've still got to do it within our means. And you look at the likes of, I know this is going back a few leagues, but like Billericay, what they did, what they had a new ownership person.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And they
Jamie O'Hara.
Yeah. And it's just not going to be sustainable.
No.
So it's a fine line between bringing in players to actually investing in players, but then if it doesn't work out, then not actually being properly messed up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think if you look at the levels of debt that we had at the end of last season, which we're still waiting on, obviously, the new owners came in and they said they were dealing with that. To very loosely paraphrase, we're obviously still waiting to see how exactly that's handled. But yeah, if you see the levels of debt that we've accrued without spending a whole lot of money on transfers over the last few seasons, it's just not it's not sustainable for a club like us on relatively small crowds to be going out and spending the sort of money that other teams are able to at our level or the level above, which is obviously frustrating because it means it's harder to be competitive and you do have to be a little bit creative in the transfer window. But it's the cards we're dealt, and I think if I'm looking at the cards we're dealt with, I'd probably trust Scott more than most managers to get the best out of them, despite the shaky starts of the season. I've sort of had a few doubts about him this season, whether he can conjure up, whether he can get the most out of this squad. But I still probably would trust him. I think I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, part of me trusts Scott completely, and then part of me looks at some of the decisions that he makes with some of the starting 11s or maybe some of the signings that he's brought in the summer, and part of me thinks, what are you doing? But anyway, I've kind of gone on a bit of a tangent there, but.
So, kind of moving away and looking ahead to our next game, just quickly, the next Reds rollover draw winners. So, in joint second place is Carol Bates and Alex Rain, and the winner is Jamie McWatters. So, well done, all of those winners, and the money will be
Congratulations all.
Your bank account soon. But also, before we kind of delve into the game against Cheltenham, just quickly worth taking a look back at some ex-players and see what they're up to now. I think the first player is worth just shouting out is Gwion Edwards, who has stuck around Morecambe through all of it and is now still at Morecambe. I think he scored a goal for them in their first game back or something.
I did see his name pop up, yeah.
And he was always a favourite of mine, Gwion Edwards. I remember, I think the day he left us was like Brexit, the same day as Brexit.
Was it really?
I think so. It was nearby, and they called and they said Gwexit.
Oh, as in the vote.
I don't know whether it's the vote or whether it's the day we actually left. I think it might have been the vote.
Yeah, 26. So 20. I mean, obviously that was 2016. So that, yeah, because he went. Yeah, it would have been 2016 when he went to Peterborough. Yeah, it must have been.
But also at Morecambe is Ludwig van Sletti.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, who again is a player that I think, well, I always still look out for.
Yeah, I had a lot of time for him when he was with us.
Yeah. And kind of moving away from the lower leagues, jumping to League One, and one player who seems to have miraculously started to learn to score goals again is a certain Will Swan.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any Bradford fans who have made Swan tattoo related bets this season, because they might be in trouble. It is ridiculous, isn't it? Like again, perhaps he was in a struggling team last season. Sometimes played that position, so I feel from there. But he never looked like someone who was ever going to be, capable of scoring sort of 15 goals at League One level, and he's well on track for that.
Yeah, he is. He scored in 4 consecutive games, and he's
big goals as well.
Yeah, I mean, he scored
crucial goals.
He scored a goal against Blackburn in the first round of the Cup, and then scored again against Stoke City in the second round of the Cup. So fair play to him. It's amazing how one player can play for one club, be poor, go to another club and be incredible.
Well, that is exactly the point I was making earlier. With Liam Kelly, he came with not great reviews and obviously was fantastic for us. Again, we've had a few players who just have turned their careers around, or have played well for us and then haven't. It works the other way around. Who have look at Danilo Orsi, for example, scored 25 goals for us and then actually had a decent start at Burton, but didn't really kick on. Didn't really do a lot at MK Dons, and I don't think he's done a lot for Wimbledon either. So again, Liam Kelly not exactly a favourite with MK Dons. There's a few players, particularly from that side, who aren't necessarily fan favourites, aren't fan favourites at their new club, and it can work the other way around. And we've had players who have come with not great reviews, and they've been absolutely fantastic for us.
Yeah, 100%. So just before we close, then looking ahead to Cheltenham, CTFC v CTFC.
The CTFC derby.
Yep.
One of the most hotly contested games in the entirety of the top 4 divisions, I might add.
100%. The Mark Yates derby.
The Mark Yates derby.
The Isaac Hutchinson derby. Now he's joined them.
I just realised we had to play.
He scored in the second minute of his debut against on Saturday against Accrington.
And he's a proper. It's also the battle of the wind-up merchants, because we've got Harry McCurdy and they've obviously got Isaac Hutchinson, who, I mean, bearing in mind he had a good little loan spell at us. He was quite well received by the fans, and I remember a couple of seasons ago he scored a penalty against us for Walsall. In a game that I think ended up being a 1-1 draw, he just started giving it like absolute pelters to the fans. Like, he scored. Bear in mind, he hadn't been given any stick. It wasn't as if there was any sort of like acrimony or any real anything between before that. And he scored a penalty in the first half, and suddenly started, giving it big uns to the fans. And it was like, after that, it was like, right, well, what's all that about? It was absolutely bizarre. So I'm not looking forward to seeing his face and his dodgy haircut on Saturday.
And also, Crawley v Cheltenham was the game where Cabbage Jalo scored his one and only goal for Crawley. So
that is
some
fantastic knowledge.
Also, it's the Reuben Watt derby, I feel like.
Yeah, there's so many narratives to this game. I'm loving it. The Reuben Watt derby, the Mark Yates derby,
I'm just trying to decide whether I wear Crawley CTFC. I don't know whether I wear Crawley stuff on the train or not.
What's the weather going to be like? You could wear a jacket over it or something.
Yeah, I think they would just be confused as to why on earth I'm on the train from Cheltenham and Crawley stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to rain a little bit, and it's not going to be that warm, so I reckon you could get away with a jacket covering it.
That's true.
And then, your accent doesn't give you away either. It's quite fairly neutral.
That's good. Probably fit more of Cheltenham than I do Crawley, to be fair.
Yeah, at this rate, the amount of time you spent up there. Yeah.
But Cheltenham haven't had the best of starts. It's not quite as bad as last season for them, where I think they went 8 games without scoring a single goal. But it's still not been the best for them. They've only won their game on Saturday, which is against Accrington. Of course, Isaac Hutchinson, like mentioned, being the goal scorer for them. And we've got some good players. I've got Hutchinson, Scott Bennett, Luke Young, and also they've just had some new owners as well. So hopefully, also Leanne Gold as well plays for them.
Mm-hmm.
For those yet to actually score. So I mean, you'd want to be winning and getting 3 points against them, particularly at home, wouldn't you?
I think it's one of those games where if we don't win, and again, we might play really well and not win. You don't necessarily get what you deserve in football, but it is one of those games where we should really be looking to just take the game to them, play without any fear. They're not a good side. The only win they've had this season is, like you say, the weekend just gone against Accrington, who are also a very, very poor side with just one. I don't even know if Accrington have won a game this season. No, Accrington have drawn 3 games this season, so it's a game that if we win and we look like we start to pull away from the relegation zone a bit, and we can start looking upwards, it would probably be really concerning. I think if we don't if we don't win, or even if we lose, then we're kind of back to where we started in terms of before we're kind of back to sort of square one in a way in terms of before the Harrogate game. So all right, a game like, and it's these games that sort of make me a bit anxious. These games where we should win and we're expected to win, and there's actually a fair bit of pressure on us to win in terms of going forward for the rest of the season, what it could mean, and how it affects the next, how it affects how the rest of the season looks. Also, 12:30 kickoff. Not a fan. I'm going to complain. I'm going to have a little bit of a grumble about that because it just winds me up. There's no need. No one. I guarantee, no one is flicking through Sky Sports going, "Do you know what? I'm not going to watch Arsenal v Nottingham Forest. I'm not going to watch whatever the early Championship kickoff is. I'm going to watch Crawley v Cheltenham." Unless you are a Crawley fan or a Cheltenham fan, you are not particularly interested in that game. So it really winds me up that the match day experience gets, especially for travelling fans. Is as a home fan, it's slightly different. But Cheltenham's not exactly that close. It's a good couple of hours away.
I mean, it's not even actually like on the main channel of Sky. It's on Sky Plus.
Exactly. No one. I guarantee. I'll be astonished if there are more than 200 people. Actually, no, because there'll probably be quite a few Cheltenham fans tuning in. I'll be astonished if it's a particularly big audience, and I understand it brings in the money for the clubs, and that is a positive, the TV deal. But I think for me, football should be at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, and not a fan. Absolutely not a fan. But other than that, worse things have happened. Obviously, it's not the end of the world, but it does wind me up a little bit.
Yeah, because the away game's also at 12:30.
Oh yeah, isn't it? Wow. So I mean, again, what's that about? That's gonna both sets of fans. That's just after New Year's, isn't it?
Yeah, 4th January.
4th January. So not. It is what it is. Nothing we can do about it as fans, but hopefully, and it's not as if it's just one game from League Two that's on TV. It's like there's like 2 or 3 games that get moved for TV every weekend. And I just don't what's the point? Anyway, right, I'm going to shut up about it now. I'll probably moan about it when we have our next TV fixture.
Well, final fun fact about Cheltenham is they play at the EV Charger Point Stadium. And fun fact, they've got no EV chargers.
What? I mean, it's just false advertising, isn't it?
It is. Well, thanks very much, Louie, for joining me this evening on the next episode. And hopefully we can get 3 points against Cheltenham. So come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Reds. Until next week.